Need an assist on finding a new vehicle? Head to Bob Moore Ford because we're dishing out deals on our entire inventory, like the 2013 F-150 or F-250. Pick yours, then roll out. Visit BobMooreFordOKC.com for a chance to win our monthly prize.
Durant, pull-up jumper, up the rim, and and the Thunder win! Come on, let's sing the Thunder song. When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your Thunder buddy and say these magic words.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Thunder Buddies podcast. I'm here with Darnell, Mayberry, and sports editor Mike Sherman. How you guys doing today?
Super.
Just fine.
All right, well, the news topic of the day, the thing everyone's talking about is the Joakim Noah, Kendrick Perkins kind of post-game argument. I don't know if I'd call it a feud. Definitely didn't even get close to being physical. Darnell, you were there.
Yep.
What'd you just kind of think of the whole thing? You want to just give your perspective? Because I got a kind of interesting perspective on it. I know you do, too.
I blogged about it in post-game rumblings last night. And for those that read it, they know. But for those who don't, I was standing right there with Kendrick Perkins, and we were talking about life and just sort of off-the-court stuff. And then he just suddenly switched to Joakim Noah and how he was still steaming because Joakim Noah went off on him. 23 and either 10 rebounds or 12 rebounds, 3 assists, and he just did not like Noah's stat line, right? And not 20 seconds later, I turn around and I see Joakim Noah in the locker room. And I say to Perk, speak of the devil. So Perk, with his back turned, he's facing his locker, which is the opposite direction of the entrance. So his back is to the entrance. He looks up, turns around, and sees Noah, and immediately loses it. And I didn't think it was going to be that touchy of a subject or a sighting. Perk obviously had a problem with it.
Yeah.
And he goes into, we just let anybody in the locker room nowadays, huh?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of blew up from there.
It was weird. I mean, the whole reason why I'm a little bit at fault here.
A little bit.
I mean,
Tabo would have been on his merry way if not for Anthony Slater.
I kind of put the actions into motion because I'm writing about Tabo off last night's game. I mean, he's been kind of struggling all year, and he has probably his best game in over a month. So I'm going to write about him. And then as he's getting dressed, he's got a wine bottle in his hand, and he starts bolting out of the locker room like pretty quickly. And I'm like, Tabo, like, can I get you real quick? And like he's going out pretty fast. He said, well, I got to go do something quick. And I'm like, are you going to come back? He said, yeah, I'll come back. So instead of doing a walk-off, I mean, he told me he was going to come back. So I was like, all right, I'll kind of just wait for him to come back. About 10 minutes later, Tumbleson tells me, he's in the Bulls locker room, and then he comes back into the entrance. I walk to the entrance to talk to him, and that's when he was giving Noah like a wine bottle as a gift or something.
I hope there was wine in it, not just like a wine bottle.
Well, I believe there was wine in it.
Okay.
And that's when Noah comes in, and then, that's when it...
Well, you got to say, Tumbleson is Matt Tumbleson, the PR guy for the Thunder, the gatekeeper, the guy who's a facilitator of interviews. The walk-off it's not a walk-off home run, listeners. It's what reporters call when the press conference is over and you have the interview subject by yourself and you're walking with them on the way to wherever. And some of those, we like walk-offs because
we love walk-offs.
That means it's just us. Now, walk-offs can be fast sometimes. But Anthony had a chance to get Tabo to himself and just have a scene. Here's an interesting thing about last night's game. He hasn't had a very good game in a while. It's against his former team with friends on the team right before holidays. So he plays real well and then delivers the wine. I want it all in the paper. I want that all in the story. The whole thing is a story. And now we're going to get it in the paper, except maybe not in the form. But to me, you did set it in.
I did. It was weird.
Go. You get the guy one-on-one. You get the scene. Go with him. And so all because you didn't do that, now we have acrimony in the NBA, Anthony.
And we might have acrimony between Thabo Sefolosha, Kendrick Perkins, and Russell Westbrook.
We'll see.
They might be a little mad at Thabo Sefolosha today for letting Joakim Noah in the locker room.
Let me ask a question. When is Russell Westbrook not mad at Thabo?
I made that point on Twitter last night. I don't know if you were following us on Twitter. Thabo Sefolosha on the Thunder is like Mario Chalmers on the Miami Heat.
I don't think as bad.
Not as bad, but he's the little brother of Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, even though he's older.
Much older.
It's cultural. The Swiss. He's
so nice. He's such a nice guy.
Well,
he
that's
never
the thing with Noah. I
retaliates.
mean, Noah, he's former teammate, from France. They were just having a nice old time, He kept Noah at the entrance. That's why, Noah didn't walk into the locker room, did you think?
No, but you know what's funny, and I don't know how many people actually saw Noah before Perk started raising his voice, but Noah was in there kind of looking around and admiring the locker room. He kind of looked like he enjoyed what he saw or thought it was pretty cool, and then all of a sudden he gets called out, and I think he was a little embarrassed because there was a lot of people in that locker room.
And he handled it well. He said, "All right, you want me to leave? I'll leave." And then Perkins tells him to leave, and he did. So
that could have got ugly quick.
Did it happen more because he wore the Thunder out, or did it happen because the locker room is a special sanctuary to Kendrick Perkins and other members of the Thunder?
I talked to Casey Johnson, longtime Chicago Bulls writer for the Chicago Tribune, came up to me to try to get the recap afterwards, and he says, he covered Joakim Noah, right? He covers the guy, and he says, Perk is right. I like him. It's old school. You don't let anybody in your locker room. So I think there's that. But then, yes, there's also, like I just said, Perk was just steaming about what Joakim Noah did to him for 48 minutes. So if he held him in check, I don't think it would have been as bad, but you still don't want anybody in your locker room if you're those guys, clearly.
Well, apparently the Bulls let at least former players in their locker room because Thabo, even in preseason when I was in there, Thabo came in postgame when I was talking to Derrick Rose.
Thabo was in there last night.
And he went in there last night to give the wine out and, talk to some old teammates. So they at least probably viewed it a little bit differently than Perkins. Because Perkins just seemed like former teammates, anyone. Nobody's coming
Our
in.
old friend Damian Wilkins, who I don't know who he was playing with at the time. He might have been with the Hawks. Who knows? He used to play for the Thunder, for those of you longtime Thunderheads out there. He once came into the locker room. He was on the team before the renovations to the Chesapeake Energy Arena, back when it was the Ford Center, probably still. And he came into the locker room as a member of the opposing team. No problem. So I guess the unwritten rule has different caveats that
former teammates.
Yeah, former teammates may be allowed in the locker room, but if you're not a former teammate, then
there's got to be exceptions. Like Derek Fisher can easily walk into the Lakers locker room. Nobody's going to call him out. There's got to be exceptions probably with every team, but Noah into Perkins' locker room.
I don't want to get away from Damian Wilkins too fast because that brings back great memories. This team wasn't always great. In fact, the first Thunder game, they played the Milwaukee Bucks, and it was a dreadful basketball game played in a soulless arena with everybody sitting around looking at each other like, what happened to the Hornets?
Who are these guys?
Who are these guys?
Right.
But what I remember about that game was a couple things. One, Damian Wilkins, I believe, was in the starting lineup. I'm not positive about it, but I know he played for the Thunder that night. And they clanked more shots that night than you can't believe. And so sort of in between the end of the game and deadline and the interviews, and it wasn't a great locker room to go into. Barry Trammell, I think he might have been Darnell and me, are sort of standing on the court. I don't know if Darnell had wandered off by then, but there's Gerald Wilkins, Damian Wilkins' father, and he's sitting there talking about this team like a high school dad would talk about Edmond Memorial, like an Edmond Memorial team father would talk about what happened in the Edmond Memorial game, and Gerald Wilkins was saying, these guys, they got to get some shooters out here. They don't have any shooters. And I said to him, well, your son's a pretty good shooter, isn't he? And he says, look, I love my son, but I'm not putting my last dime on his shot. I thought it was a classic. I thought it was a classic.
All right. You guys want to guess the Thunder starting lineup for that opener? I have it up right now.
Earl Watson.
Johan Petro.
Kevin Durant.
Earl Watson, Kevin Durant, Johan Petro was the center.
Johan, I think, isn't it?
Nick Collison.
Nick Collison's 29 minutes, 7 points, 6 rebounds, at -18, plus minus.
And Desmond Mason.
Nope. Mason off the bench scored 11 in that game.
Who was the 2 guard? So we're missing the 2
You
guard.
missed it pretty obvious.
Obvious.
Oh, not a 2 guard.
Oh,
They
Jeff
haven't.
Green.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That is
They haven't
obvious.
listed as a 2 guard.
So they were still
Yeah, he
running
was.
Kevin Durant out there, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what got PJ fired.
Nice job, PJ.
Well, you know what, though? They might have been telling PJ to play there. And I'll tell you what, whatever Kevin Durant had to do with the 2 in those days, paying off right now.
Russell Westbrook, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists off the bench.
How many minutes?
13, 4, and 4 in his first NBA game?
22 minutes. Tied for
enough.
their leading scorer with 13 points.
Hey, what did Earl Watson have that game?
8 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, 26 minutes, 3 and 9 shooting.
I stood alone.
Plus minus on Earl Watson and Russell Westbrook. Was the writing on the wall in game 1 is what I want to see.
Plus minus Russell Westbrook, plus 5, plus minus Earl Watson, negative 16.
Ooh.
Negative 16.
I stood alone. I was almost like wearing a sandwich board, picketing out in front of the Ford Center, demanding that Russell Westbrook.
Hey,
be in
let's
the
not
starting
start
lineup.
bringing up your track record.
Why?
There's a certain bearded one in Houston who I believe you called fat in this very room.
Heavy. He's on the heavy side. He was. Anyway, that's
Last
interesting.
thing on this game.
Yeah.
3 Milwaukee Bucks scored 20 points, and in an easy win. Guess who they are?
Michael Redd.
Michael Redd was
Yes,
one
sir.
of them.
Good job. Hey, that's easy. Now we're stumped. Watch.
You should be able to get one of these last 2.
Bogut.
No.
No.
Andrew Bogut had 14 and 7. This is a decent little Bucks team.
No.
In
the
there,
Bucks,
they've 4 seeds.
who was on that Bucks team? What was that,
Charlie
2008?
Villanueva.
Charlie Villanueva, 20 points.
Whoa,
Hey,
nice pull.
20 points and 12 boards, plus minus a plus 24 in that game.
He
killed him.
That's why the Pistons paid him $10 million a year. That game.
Who
right
was the
there.
point guard on that team?
Luke Ridenour.
He didn't get 20.
Oh, a 6, 2 points.
Jeez. All right, we're wasting time. Who?
Richard Jefferson,
Yeah.
20 and 8.
Yeah. That was him.
He's hanging around.
All right, well, this got really random.
Anyway, we started talking about Damian Wilkins.
All right.
That's an interesting thing that happened that you lit the spark for, and that you were standing and it exploded on you. My question is this: was Perk screaming and yelling?
No, I have it on audio.
Was he? What was his? How loud was he? Was it just
He
sort
was-
of an exclamation?
It was
was-
an
it
exclamation,
was just-
and let me say this:
It was loud enough.
he
so
was serious. It was more the fact that how serious
Yeah.
he was. I was standing literally closer than we're sitting to each other right now, and I felt like I was in danger because at any moment the big fella could have jumped out of his seat and attacked Noah, or Noah could have come over. I walked away. And I walked up to Russell Westbrook on the other side of the locker room because Russell was almost done getting dressed and about to address the media. They thought I was going over to eavesdrop on their conversation about Noah and guys in the locker room. I just wanted to get out of the way. So, it could have really gotten dangerous really quickly.
So you and Perk are talking about fatherhood, and the next thing you know,
He sees Joakim Noah, and it's about to be on.
it's not Zach Randolph and
It
Meet me
wasn't.
by the
it's gonna-
bus.
but it's going to have to stand.
Hey, before we leave this topic, before we move on, a Chicago Bulls writer saw them cross paths in the hallway after that. And apparently they had more words.
Yeah.
And it didn't get physical, but, and I'm quoting someone else, so I'm hearing this secondhand. He said that one of the guys said to the other, if you want to do this, we can do this. so March 17th, I think that's St. Patty's Day, up in Chicago just got a whole lot more interesting.
From what I saw, I thought Noah handled it really well, though.
No, he did. He did. But he shouldn't have been in the locker room. And I
Yeah.
think that's more Tabo's fault than Joakim Noah.
No, it's Anthony's fault.
Yeah, it's all
Blame
Slater.
it all on me.
It's all
It's all
Slater.
right. I'll
Rookie.
take it. Yeah, really. All right, let's get to this year's team. 21-4. I think, what are they won? 17-18, 16-17, something like that. 2 8-game winning streaks already, though. And last year's team was 21-4 at this exact time. Do you think this team's better than last year's team, in your opinion?
Oh, heck yes.
Yeah,
agree.
I don't think it's
I
I don't
agree.
think it's close. Kevin Martin, you replace Kevin Martin with the law firm. Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb. I don't think it's close. Those guys, and you bring in Steven Adams. And you
Steven
got
Adams,
guys
yeah.
who can't even get off the bench who have shown their ability to produce.
Perry Jones.
Andre Robertson, Perry Jones.
Plus Serge is obviously better.
Serge is better. Russell's
Except for
better.
last night.
He was, yeah. It was a rough night.
Noah's defensive impact on Serge.
Noah's a good player.
Yeah.
Really good player.
Someone asked me, I don't know who it was. Someone asked me, would you rather have Joakim Noah or Serge Ibaka?
Ooh. I'd take Serge, but Noah, he's a disruptor. Holy smokes.
How about that jumper he's got, though? That
Well,
sideways jumper.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, he makes it a decent
Here's the
amount of
deal.
time.
Him and Perk, I think what started it was you got an ugly jumper. Yeah, but mine's prettier than yours. I think that's what the throwdown was. Somebody made a comment about somebody's ugly jumper because that's a battle of ugly jumpers.
Perks probably looks better. Joakim's goes in more.
Perks looks slow.
Yeah.
You wonder if the ball's going to go to the rim in the same slow motion that it.
Hey, Perk ran it wasn't Perk's jumper last night. Perk ran the break twice in that game last night.
It led to a ref almost getting freaking decapitated.
Speaking of people's sons and not putting a dime on people's sons, I love my son, but he plays hard and he fouls a lot. But watching Perk run that break remind me of something when my son played junior high basketball, and he had the ball, and the guys on his team were saying, "Hey, give me Brooks, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball." It's like as Perk is dribbling, everybody on the team is shouting his name with their hands, like, "Give me the ball, give me the ball."
It's not just the team; you can hear the
fans.
crowd.
He's gonna lose it. He's gonna lose it. It's the craziest thing. I've never heard it before in any professional setting. It's a sense of dread. They're up 15. He's got the ball, and everybody is thinking, let's get our coat and go. This is going to all turn out bad.
All right.
Poor fella. I love him.
He's been decent lately, too.
Better than decent.
Moving on. Whose development on this team has been the most impressive to you guys? If you had to pick one player.
Most impressive? Are we saying recently, or the Serge count?
This year.
This year? Serge Ibaka.
Okay.
I think he's shown last night. It's tough to say after he got abused last night, but
yeah,
offensively, his mid-range jumper, I think he's one of the best in the league, if not the best. Shooting big men, I'm not counting Dirk, guys like that. I'm just saying mid-range power forwards who don't traditionally play on the outside. His mid-range shot, you send him getting the post more. He's a nightly double-double. So I believe what he's done this year, I don't think it's really close. I think he's the guy. And then Reggie Jackson, I'd probably put second.
Yeah.
Because we saw this out of Reggie in the playoffs. Serge, remember, had an awful playoff series without Russell Westbrook. And Reggie played great. Serge is now picking it up. And Reggie I think we kind of all expected, most of us, we want to bring up track records. I think most of us expected Reggie Jackson to perform like he's performing.
I think you're right. Everything you said, the one thing I would say is I don't think Reggie was great in the playoffs. I think he was good, and he had some flashes. I am just and I'm not surprised, but it's just remarkable to watch Reggie Jackson and the flourishes that he has, the flourishes that last a quarter and a half.
Especially times where he's the best player on the court, even though Durant's on it at times. He'll take over for like 4 or 5 straight minutes.
The lean backs, the lean intos, the incredible confidence and pace that he's playing with. I mean, this is going to sound like total hyperbole, but he has the body control and the pacing that Chris Paul has. He really does. He is a very underrated ball handler and dribbler.
He's gotten better.
He's underrated. He stopped doing that thing where he holds his hand up like it's a stop sign. I called him the crossing guard. Yeah, he'd be wide open. I don't know. It's crazy. Sometimes I thought maybe he was showing off his rainbow bracelet that he had made out of rubber bands or something. He was really proud of it. Hey, look at my rubber band. But the lean backs, he'll take and he can make any shot.
Yep. He scored in so many ways last night.
Except the Bulls got serious. Tom Thibodeau at one point, I think, called timeout and said, if you let him do that teardrop one more time from the free throw line, you're walking home. And so guess what? That's when Noah came up and said, give me that ball. I'm going to go down and dunk it. They stopped that play. They said, you stop sagging off this guy.
How bad are the Bulls at the point guard right now, though?
Well, I mean, there's worse teams at the point guard, believe it or not.
Lakers.
Yeah.
You know, the Lakers are starting a point guard tonight, right? Nick Young at point guard.
I'd do that. That sounds good, like a great idea.
If no, if you just want the ball to stay in one guy's hands.
That's right. That's right. Well, the Bulls are they're in trouble, and there was no doubt Thunder was winning that game last night.
I think the most impressive development of a player, and probably the biggest one, I agree with you guys, is Jackson. But I'd say the most surprising one has got to be Steven Adams. He averaged 7 points in college last year in the Big East. Like, was not that big a factor in the Big East. Now he's kind of pushing for a bigger role every night in the NBA on a really good team. That is the most surprising to me.
They do this. I mean, they do this. Russell Westbrook was the sixth man at UCLA who got to play and start a lot when there was an important defensive assignment. He was a primary ball handler on that team when the other guy was on the bench. And he's an all-star. I mean, the production in college doesn't matter to these scouts as much as all the intangibles. I think that, look at all these guys. They take them off successful programs though. And they draft a bunch of guys with substantial surnames. Look at this. Green, Jackson, Durant, Westbrook. Look at all the first names of these guys. Russell, Steven,
Reggie.
I mean, it's not a bunch of Kevin.
Tabo. No, they traded for him.
Well, I mean, look at this draft. They get into it and they develop them. It's remarkable, and it's interesting that we just each named 4 people, and we didn't even name Lamb yet.
Yeah.
Your guy.
He's been good.
I'm surprised by him.
Yeah.
He's still. Have you ever seen a guy who plays really well and still looks like he's got deer in the headlights? He could score 40 and still have a deer in the headlights look.
I'm trying to think of any other players.
Has anybody ever seen him blink? I've never seen him blink. He doesn't blink.
All right, Twitter questions. Every week we ask them. Thanks to everyone who sent them. Cody Rogers, when will Brooks shorten his rotation? I'm just going to kind of adjust this question. Do you think by playoff time, I mean, he can't be going 10, 11 deep like he does some of these games when you get deep in the playoffs, right?
Well, he already has shortened his rotation. Perry
Perry
Jones
Jones
out,
is basically,
so he was at 11 earlier in the season, probably the first 10 games. Now he's still at 10. Derek Fisher, probably that 10th guy. The question is, who do you sit if you're going to shorten it to 9?
I'm just saying, come playoff time, I mean, most teams go 9, almost even 8 at times. And you think Fisher's going to play in the playoffs? Probably, because that's when he loves to play Fisher.
You're not sitting Reggie.
No.
You're not sitting Collison.
No. You're not, I mean.
You're Adams, maybe.
Maybe, but you may sit Perkins a lot quicker.
I think it depends on matchups. That's the answer to the question. It depends on the matchup. Some against one team, they might not need Steven Adams.
Or might not need Perkins.
Well, I'm saying the bench. Perk's going to play. And
Are you talking about getting on the score sheet, or are you talking about
playing? I'm just saying he may shorten Perkins' minutes even more to give.
I'm always curious as to why. Why do people wonder so much? I don't want to turn into Scott Brooks, but there's an undue fascination with guys who aren't playing. I mean, and I think that comes back to OU football and spring football and everybody wanting to know why isn't this guy playing? I wonder if that's. I think also it's because of the unique situation of the Thunder. Can you think of another franchise in professional sports that at the same time is developing its future while competing for a title?
Every time we go to practice, you see Reggie Jackson, Jeremy Lamb, and Perry Jones sitting at the far side of the court all together, right next to each other. And you just kind of have this vision of them being the future, yet they're also the present. And it's incredible because Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook are on the court, and then you got these 3 young studs sitting down. It's like they got next, but they also got now.
Tell them the question I asked you the other day. Did I ask you or ask Eric?
What about the Knicks?
Yeah, the Knicks.
You were saying, would the Knicks front office trade their starting lineup right now for the Thunder second unit?
And the answer is no, because they want to sell tickets.
Well, okay, what other front offices,
but I said
if they could choose between the two?
Every other franchise in the NBA, except for the Knicks and maybe the Lakers,
Nets
would gladly give up the Knicks starting five for the Thunder's second five.
I think if we're taking money into account, I would agree.
And I would exempt Collison. I would take Collison out of it, although they should take Collison because he's the one who helps get everybody on the program. But look at that. The Knicks would be better off if they were given 35 minutes to all these guys.
Okay.
Way better.
Well, that kind of brings up an interesting question I had from somebody about the Spurs last night. They don't play their big three, and they, in Golden State, beat them with their second unit, basically. Should Scott Brooks ever try something like that in one of these games? Get his second unit, in just a random game like that. Get his stars some rest and get his second unit players big, important minutes. And see what they can do.
No. Tim Duncan's how old? 37?
37.
Something like that. Manu Ginobili's 35, something around that. Tony Parker's got a lot of miles on him. He's 31, 32.
He's hurt right now, too.
Greg Popovich is doing it for different reasons. Scott Brooks has a bunch of early 20 to mid 20-year-olds. He doesn't need to do that.
I just mean one random game, maybe. On a second night of a back-to-back or something.
One random game before the playoffs, the last week of the regular season.
That I would say, yeah, but I wouldn't do it December 19th, no.
Show up, all you folks who are worried about the shortening of the rotation. It won't be shortened that night. It'll be shortened.
Yeah, let's.
Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka will be shortened on them.
Well, speaking of that, Spurs Thunder tomorrow. Sounds like Parker may play, and then obviously Duncan and Ginobili are going to play. That's a big one. Seems like. You excited for it?
I didn't know Tony Parker was hurt. What's he got?
Shin. He injured his shin against the Clippers last week. Didn't play, obviously, last night, and didn't play the game before. They announced that he was going to miss those two.
If he doesn't play, that game loses a lot of its luster.
A little bit. I mean, the Spurs can stay in games at home. You saw what they did on the road against Golden State.
Yeah, and the Thunder
night.
Struggles down there.
So, I mean, even if Parker doesn't play, the Thunder shouldn't be rolling in there being like, it's over.
Are we talking about excitement for entertainment purposes? Or are we talking about excitement because it's a bellwether? We'll know something after watching it. If it's going to be entertaining anyway. This team, you don't miss the games. You just watch they always play interesting games, the Thunder does. But if we're looking for some gauge, Parker's got to play. If Parker doesn't play, then we don't know anything.
I agree. And, I mean, even if he does and it's a great game, we don't really know anything.
You can see some matchups emerging.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, come playoff time, series are so much different than regular season,
Is Spurs Thunder the equivalent of Heat Pacers? Is that the West equivalent, best match or answer to
sure.
Heat Pacers in the East?
I think for sure.
Yeah, and in a couple ways. One, the proven commodity versus the challenger upstart. Lots of ways. Of course,
Thunder beat them.
I think the Thunder is
they're on a higher level than the Pacers as far as resume.
Right, and they also have the Pacers have a problem. They don't have a point guard.
Not a good one.
They don't have you talk about bad point guard situations.
If they had a point guard, they would have won that game.
George Hill's better than anything the Lakers or Bulls are throwing out there.
No, he's not.
No, he's not a point guard.
Well, I mean, he's playing it. Lance Stevenson's getting better in that role, but I mean, he's still kind of
that team is kind of ripe for a deal. They need a point guard.
Who would you trade? Oh,
Danny Granger.
Danny Granger.
You need him to come back and show something for about 5-6 games.
They need Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson. Can you imagine Reggie Jackson on the Pacers? Holy smokes!
That'd be scary.
Be scary.
Yeah.
They just don't. Hill cannot break down a defense. Did I say Hill?
Yeah, George Hill.
Yeah, George Hill. He can't break down a defense. I don't think that much, and he can't get the ball where it needs to go. So I don't know why we talked about that, but
yeah.
Heat, Pacers, Spurs, Thunder.
Yeah.
Okay. Can Oklahoma City challenge the 85. So Bill Simmons threw this out last night. I don't know how seriously, but the 1985-86 Celtics went 40-1 at home. Any chance the Thunder challenge that? Keegan Davis asked this. I don't think so. I mean, they should have already had a couple losses at home. I know they didn't, but 40-1 sounds out of hand.
Wow.
That's the all-time record?
Yeah.
I don't see it being challenged. If you say within 5 games of it, yeah. I think they could get within 5 games of that.
The Nuggets went 38-3 at home last year.
Nuts.
That was just last year?
Yeah.
Thunder contributed 2 of those.
Yeah, they did.
What's harder, 40-1 or 70 wins? 40-1 at home or 70 wins?
I think 70 wins is harder.
If you get to 40-1 at home.
Because if you get 70 wins, you better have a near 40-1 home record, and then you have to be really good on the road too.
So 500 on the road, you're 60 wins. 40-1, and then 500 on the road. Wowzer.
Well, that would make you have to go what on the road to win 70? You'd have to win 30 games on the road.
Yeah, that's
which
30
is really
wins
good.
on the road is.
So that's why I think 70 is worse, because even if you get 40-1 at home, you still have to also win 30 on the road.
This Thunder team could do something special this year.
They are doing something special.
Well, I mean, it's something special like a 70 wins.
Ooh. I'll say this. They're better than the team that lost to the Heat in the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
I think so. And
it's better because Durant is. I don't know.
They have the potential to be better. They have not yet proven themselves to be better.
That's the thing.
We can't use 25 games in the regular season to say that they're better. This team's got to do it in the postseason.
Well,
and right now, Reggie Jackson is still a relatively unknown.
Lamb
is you don't know what you're going to get out of him in the playoffs. So same thing with Steven Adams. If you get a guy like Perry Jones or Robertson in there, who knows?
Coaches always talk about it. It's so much different when you have 7 games and you're just game planning specifically for a team every night, adjustments. Oh, Lamb likes to do that. Yep. Let's take that away. Let's, this and that. So playoffs are just different.
Yeah, they are. But I guess what I'm saying is if you go down the roster.
Personnel.
And you go down and you go how the whole thing fits together. They're better every step of the way.
So if this team was playing the finals Thunder team in a 7-game series, you'd take this team.
They'd run him out of the gym.
Yeah, right.
Oh my!
No,
they'd run him out of the gym.
No way.
Listen, that Westbrook would be shattered by this Westbrook.
Ibaka's better than Ibaka.
No doubt about it. Here's who else is.
I'll tell you what, Tabo of all of them probably smoked this Tabo.
Yeah, no. He was shooting the ball off the side of the backboard in that series. Daquan Cook.
Wouldn't have got out of the Western Conference Finals without Daquan Cook.
Oh,
probably.
he just threw one in. Listen, they're better at every position. Nick Collison is Nick Collison in every other spot, including Kendrick Perkins, I would say. He had a bad groin injury.
How about that matchup? Kendrick Perkins against Kendrick Perkins.
They would run these guys out of. These guys would run those guys out of the gym.
Well, Kendrick Perkins would get a couple quick double techs and they'd knock themselves out of the gym. Quick ejections.
Durant would relegate himself to spectator status at times during games.
It's not a fair comparison.
Doesn't even happen
You
anymore.
guys took it to a different level.
Yeah,
a
this
different
is getting
place.
weird.
It's a great question.
But you took it to a different place comparing 2011-12 KD to 2013-14 KD. That's just not fair. 2 years
fair.
of maturity.
It's completely fair. It says because we're comparing him to himself. It's a way of talking about how much better he is. And it's also a way of talking about how much better Scott Brooks is. The key move for Durant is letting him be a playmaker, because what it did was it upped his ante in investment.
You hated that move.
No, I didn't.
When they first started doing it,
what I said is it's not going to be pretty.
We can go back. We can check the archives. When they first started doing it, you said they need to get the ball out of his hands and let him score.
I said it's not going to be pretty. It wasn't pretty.
He's changing his tune. We got to find the archives.
It wasn't.
That's
pretty.
happened more than once.
Well, let me say this: I will change my tune. It's fine. I've been.
You need to be able to adjust.
And this Durant is better because they said, "Here's the ball. He's better on defense. He's a better passer. He's a better teammate." I don't see as much as the Penguin play from Kevin Durant these days. I saw it once. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
when he flaps his arms to the side and turns, walks the other way, and then they get a 3 down on the other end. He doesn't do it as much.
Right.
All right. From John Ham, last Twitter question. Does the Spurs beating the or no, that's the wrong one. The Thunder's they're only shooting 33% from 3 this year. You know, it's near the bottom of the league. I think it's around 23rd or so. Is that a concern moving forward? They were 3rd in the league last year. It's clearly where they've taken the biggest drop off from last year. Is that a concern? I mean, they're winning games without hitting threes, except for last night they went 9 of 15. But I mean, they're winning a lot of games shooting 2 of 14 and this and that. Are you still worried about that?
Yes. I don't care about the regular season. I mean, this team's got to do it in the playoffs, and everything is geared toward being better in the playoffs, playing your best basketball in the playoffs. And if you can't make shots, teams are going to sag off of you and dare you to shoot. They're going to camp out in the lane, and they're going to cut off driving lanes for Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. Unless this team proves that it can make shots, defenses are going to have an easy time to guard them.
I agree.
Not worried in the least. That whole playmaking thing that they were trying to get Durant, and it was ugly, that's what they're doing with a lot of three-point shooting right now. They're trying to figure out, they're trying to get guys used to taking some of these threes, and they're not going to make them to start off with.
Well, Russell Westbrook's got to stop taking them all if they're trying to get other guys used to him.
They won him that. Remember what kind of shooter Westbrook was when he started this thing? Not very good. I think he shot the ball with his guide hand in front of the ball almost. Anyway, his shot is a lot better.
I don't mind him shooting the open ones. I don't like the ones where he's off the dribble, where he's coming off a screen and just says, screw it, and he just pulls.
19 on the clock.
It's a little too much. But John Hamm, about John Hamm for a second. Shout out to John Hamm. John Hamm is a guy who is Barry's salary cap advisor. And John Hamm knows this game. He knows the financial side of it, too. In fact, I think he writes for Larry Kuhn's website. John Hamm, I missed lunch with you when you and Barry went out and talked about stuff. Want to get John Hamm.
We should get him on the podcast.
Get him on the podcast. Get him on the blog. John Hamm, he's a guy. He knows this game. He asks good questions. So I think it's a concern. Now look, Lamb's going to be a good. Lamb is going to be a better three-point shooter. Kevin Durant is a terrific three-point shooter. Reggie Jackson is an improving three-point shooter. Russell, let's talk about that. So I think Durant.
Tabo's struggling, but
and with the exception of Kevin Durant, all the guys you mentioned, teams are going to dare those guys to shoot in the playoffs. That's my concern.
That is true.
I mean, they're going to dare those guys to make open shots.
Some of them will. The other thing that always balances the Thunder's three-point shooting is their march to the free throw line. That's the great equalizer. As long as they're getting to the line and making those free throws, they can survive less, a subpar three-point shooting night all the time.
And defense, too. Once you get stops and get out in transition, score on the break, that helps.
The court looks smaller now. The defensive end for the Thunder, the space they occupy, this doesn't look like there's much space.
Yeah.
They take up a lot of space, cut off a lot of angles.
All right. Let's move on to a couple league-wide questions before we get out of here. This actually came from Twitter, but I'm just using it as league-wide. From Rise Together, what is the order of your top 4 MVP candidates right now?
That's tough. I might put Kevin Durant at the top. League best record, best player on the best team, improving defender, improving rebounder. Probably KD 1, LeBron 2.
LeBron's got to be 1 2.
Paul George 3, LaMarcus Aldridge 4.
LeBron's shooting 60% right now, 41 from 3.
Who's your top 4?
I think LeBron and Durant right now are kind of interchangeable, 1 2.
Yeah.
And
that might change tomorrow.
I could see Durant maybe winning it if it's this close at the end of the year, because it's kind of like, all right, LeBron's won it enough, new blood type deal. So that'll be interesting coming down to it.
Who's 3 and 4?
I think LaMarcus Aldridge has to be up there, just because they're what are they right now? 22 and 5, something like that. And I mean, he's had just monster games in big games. I mean, what he did to the Thunder, what he did the other night. I think they played in Houston when he had like 31 and 25.
Yep.
And then Paul George, just because of their record and how well he's played.
Strange that there's not a 5th guy. Maybe Chris Paul.
I mean, Kevin Love's putting up huge numbers. They're just
500.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
And all the Spurs guys are old, and they're more of
Yeah.
a sum of the parts.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
It's either LeBron or Durant, and Aldridge is sort of the.
Aldridge and George are kind of.
I mean, they're good. They're
Really
great.
good,
They're all-star players. They're having the greatest seasons. They don't match. We're talking about different kinds of players. Paul George is
special.
I think Kevin Durant should be the most improved player in the NBA and the MVP. I think
this year?
I think he's the most improved player in the NBA.
Has he improved that much over last year?
I'd say he's not the most improved player on his team. I think Reggie Jackson is.
I think that award is too often given to somebody
who bursts onto the scene,
wasn't playing much, and all of a sudden went from sort of not out of the spotlight to in it. That's what that.
If we're talking about good players becoming even greater, Paul George might be a better candidate.
Durant, rebounding, defense, playmaking, decision making. Durant has improved immensely. He's taken it to another tier. Up.
Yeah.
All right. Are the Blazers a real threat to win the West? Like, you think they have a legit shot? I agree. I don't. Come playoff time, I mean, I could see them being one of those 3 seeds against like the Warriors in the first round.
The Thunder, they got the Thunder's problem. The Thunder's problem's in the second unit. They got it in their starting lineup. Those guys haven't been in the postseason, and the ones who haven't had much experience. So when they get there, it's going to be new. They've got to figure out how to play on that stage together. It's one thing to do it in the regular season. You got to do it in the playoffs.
If they make the second round, they're probably going to be facing either the Spurs or Thunder. I don't see them getting out of that series.
For all you guys out there obsessing over three-point shooting, what's the Blazers' three-point shooting percentage?
Let's look. Wesley Matthews is shooting something ridiculous by himself.
I don't know if you guys looked at my fantasy league team lately, but
I haven't. Quick answer: I have not. And
I haven't looked at mine lately.
I got some ball players.
My fantasy league team stinks.
You got Wes Matthews? Is that okay?
Yeah? Got Wes Matthews. I got Trey Burke. Trey Burke, ladies and gentlemen.
He's turning it on.
He can play.
Could he be making a push for Rookie of the Year? That's one thing we don't talk about. Nobody talks about Rookie of the Year.
Blazers 41% from 3.
That won't.
First in the NBA.
That's not going to last.
No way.
Keep taking a lot of them.
Warriors shot 40% last year, led the league.
Well, 40% is not. It's going to be hard to maintain. That's surprising to me. I just don't. I don't see how that all tiles up.
They're making over 10 a game.
How many are they taking?
24. They're making 10.2, taking 24.9, so 25 basically. That's a really good percentage. So 41%, you're taking a ton. That's the way the league's moving.
I think it's great. I mean, Terry Stotts is doing a great job out there. I think if they get to the Western Conference semifinals or Western Conference finals,
that's a great year.
What a great turnaround. This team has reversed its slide. I mean, they played some good ball last year.
They lost. They were on a 13-game losing streak to end last season.
Portland deserves a good basketball team. Congrats for them.
Yeah.
What a cool place.
But I agree with
I'm hoping for a Thunder Blazers playoff series.
Be super.
That would be a good
That'd
series.
Be fantastic.
I agree. All right, last question. Thunder at the Knicks on Christmas Day. It kind of, when it came out, it was kind of a cool deal, and I still think it's a cool deal. I mean,
for you, it's a cool deal for you.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be
They
fun.
were all pretty cool when they came out. Now they all, what are the last 2 games? The last 2 games
I know
might
Heat
be pretty
Lakers
good.
are bad. 1 second.
Bulls Nets, I think, are the first game.
Oh, dear.
That's a terrible game. Then the Thunder's in the second slot with the Knicks. That'll be a head kicking. And then the Heat Lakers, awful. I think you got Rockets and Warriors maybe, one of the late games.
That'd be cool if they had like a flex deal where they could reroute, re-bracket the whole thing.
Yeah.
In other words, they say, oh, no, you're not going to New York. You're going to Miami.
The first 3 are bad.
The
You're
first
right.
3 are
Bulls,
terrible.
Nets, ew. Thunder, Knicks, whooping. Heat, Lakers, whooping. And then Rockets at Spurs.
Rockets Spurs, that's who it is. Yeah.
And then Clippers at Warriors. That's some nice nightcaps.
Yeah.
But yeah, those first three. But anyway, the Knicks, they're just a mess.
Did you see the GIF? You're the king of GIFs, or the local king of GIFs anyway. This video of Bucks coming down, not even on a break, right? Off an inbounds. They come down, and the Knicks are all looking at each other. And J.R. Smith is supposed to be out there on the guy, getting ready to pull up and shoot an uncontested three. I mean, there's nobody around him. And J.R. Smith walks through the lane like, I don't know, like he dropped $1 or something looking for it. And the guy pulls up and hits a three, and they all look at each other the same way they looked at Bargnani the other night.
That was the play I was
This team is throwing it. There's something. They're tanking. I don't even know what to call what they're doing. But it's a travesty.
Darnell, did you see the Bargnani play?
I saw the Bargnani play.
About?
Yeah.
This team is just Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson needs to pull a Bo Pelini and stand up and say, if you want to fire me, fire me.
Oh, they'll fire him.
They need to fire him.
Who are they going to get right now?
Doesn't matter. They got no. They get a clue first.
There's a lot of good coaches out there. You got George Karl with no job. Lionel Hollins with no job.
That's the guy. George Karl to go coach the Knicks, and then they deserve each other.
Problem is they have no future assets. They just trade everything away. Same with the Nets.
You know, is there a more? They pay an awful lot for those tickets. That's a desperate fan base. Got to be it's Washington Redskins, Dallas Cowboys, New York Knicks. Terrible.
Chicago Cubs.
Well, they pay a ton and get nothing in return.
Yeah.
Awful. Money can't buy you love or happiness.
We'll end it there. Thanks for listening to another edition of Thunder Buddies podcast presented by Bob Moore Ford. And we'll talk to you next week.